The Tim Hortons on Dunbar Street was never quiet at 7 in the evening, but it was the kind of noise that faded into itself. The hiss of the espresso machine, chairs scraping tile, the low murmur of conversations no one else was meant to hear. Daniel Carter had been coming here on Wednesday evenings for 3 years, ever since his daughter Mia started her weekly swim practice at the community center 2 blocks east. He always ordered the same thing, a medium dark roast, black, and a maple glazed for Mia to eat on the drive home. He always sat at the same table by the window, the one with the wobbly leg that nobody else seemed to want. He was reading the same paragraph of the same report for the 4th time when Mia came back from the washroom and stopped walking. She was 9 years old and had her mother's way of going still when something caught her attention. Not the stillness of shyness, but the stillness of a person who was deciding something. "Dad," she said. Daniel looked up. Mia was not looking at him. She was looking at the woman 2 tables over. The woman was sitting alone with a small coffee in front of her that she had not touched. She had a canvas tote bag on the seat beside her and a winter coat that was too light for the temperature outside. The kind of coat you kept wearing, not because it was warm enough, but because it was the one you had. She was staring at the menu board on the wall with an expression Daniel recognized. It was the expression of someone doing arithmetic in their head that was not coming out right. "Dad," Mia said again, quieter this time. "Does she have anyone to sit with?" Daniel looked at his daughter. Then he looked at the woman. "I don't know," he said. "Can we ask her?" He set down the report. He looked at Mia for a moment, at the particular seriousness in her face, the way she was asking him a real question and expected a real answer. "You can ask her," he said, politely. Mia nodded once, the way she nodded when she had already made up her mind, and walked over to the woman's table. Her name was Margaret Ellison. She told Mia this in the careful, respectful way that some adults use with children when they want the child to know they are being taken seriously. "I'm Mia Carter," Mia said. "We're sitting over there. My dad said I could ask if you wanted to come sit with us. You don't have to." Margaret Ellison looked past Mia at Daniel. He gave a small nod that he hoped communicated nothing more than, "She is right, you don't have to." Margaret was quiet for a moment. She looked at her untouched coffee. Then she picked up her tote bag, and she came. She sat across from Daniel and beside Mia, and for a moment no one spoke. Mia bit into her maple glazed and got icing on her chin and did not notice. Daniel offered Margaret one of the napkins from the dispenser on the table. "Thank you," she said. "Daniel Carter," he said. "I know you said." She almost smiled. She had a composed way of speaking, every sentence measured, as if she was accustomed to choosing her words carefully, and had decided the habit was worth keeping even in small conversations. She was somewhere in her early 50s, he guessed. Her hands around the coffee cup were steady. "Margaret," Mia said without preamble. "Why weren't you eating anything?" "Maya," Daniel said. "It's all right," Margaret said. She looked at Mia with something that was not quite amusement and not quite sadness. "I wasn't very hungry," Maya considered this. "Dad always says that, but then he eats the rest of mine." Margaret did smile then, briefly. "Your father sounds like a practical man." Daniel said nothing. He picked up his coffee. She had moved to Vancouver from Sudbury 8 months ago, she told them. Her husband had passed 2 years prior. She said this plainly, without apology, the way people say things they have said many times and no longer need to soften. She had a son in Vancouver, Kevin, and she had come to be closer to him. Kevin worked in construction management and was doing well, she said, in the tone of a woman who was proud and careful not to show it excessively. She had worked for 26 years as a bookkeeper for a manufacturing firm in Sudbury. The firm had closed. She had found part-time work here at an accounting office on West Broadway, 2 days a week, which was enough to keep her occupied, but not enough to fully cover things. She was looking for more. She had submitted 11 applications in the past 6 weeks. She said none of this as complaint. She said it as inventory. Daniel listened. He asked one question. What kind of work was she looking for? And she answered it directly and without embellishment. Full-charge bookkeeping. Small to mid-size businesses, any sector. She had her CPA designation. She had references. She had a portfolio of work that she could not show anyone because her former employer's records were now in the hands of a liquidation firm somewhere in Mississauga. "That's a difficult position," Daniel said. "It is what it is," Margaret said. Mia had finished her donut and was now drawing circles on the table with her finger. "What's a liquidation firm?" she asked. "It's a company that handles things when another company has to close," Daniel said. "Like a funeral home," Mia said thoughtfully, "but for businesses." Margaret looked at Mia. "That's actually a very good way to put it. I'm good at comparisons," Mia said. My teacher says so. They stayed another 40 minutes. Mia talked about swim practice and the backstroke, and a girl on her team named Sophie Brennan, who was very fast but not a very good sport about it. Margaret listened with what appeared to be genuine interest. Daniel watched the two of them and drank his coffee and said very little. When it was time to go, he helped Mia with her jacket and gathered the report he had not finished reading. "It was nice to meet you," Margaret said. She said it to Mia first, then to Daniel. "You too," Daniel said. Outside, the temperature had dropped. The street was wet from the rain that had come through in the afternoon. Mia took his hand as they walked to the car, which she still did sometimes when she remembered to. "She seemed sad," Mia said. "She seemed like someone with a lot to manage," Daniel said. "Is that the same thing?" He thought about this honestly. "Sometimes," he said. He did not think about Margaret Ellison for the rest of that week. Then on Friday, he had lunch with his colleague Paul Nishida, who worked in the same engineering firm, and whose wife ran a small property management company on the east side. Paul mentioned, between bites of a sandwich, that his wife Claire was still looking for someone to sort out their accounts. They'd had 3 bookkeepers in 18 months. The last one had left mid-quarter. Paul said his wife was exhausted. Daniel said, "I might know someone." He said it before he had decided to say it. He went home that evening and wrote down Margaret Ellison's name on a piece of paper. He didn't have her number. He had no way to contact her. He didn't know her son's last name. He folded the paper and put it on his desk and told himself it was probably nothing. The following Wednesday, he went back to the Tim Hortons on Dunbar Street. He sat at the table with the wobbly leg. He did not let himself look at the door more than once every 10 minutes, and he did not entirely succeed. She came in at 7:20 with her canvas tote bag and her 2-light coat. She ordered a small coffee. She sat down 2 tables over, facing the menu board, and again she did not drink it. He got up and walked over. "Margaret," he said. She looked up. Her expression arranged itself into something careful and neutral, which told him she had not expected to see him again, and was not sure what to make of this. "Daniel Carter," she said. "I know you remember," he said. "May I sit down?" She looked at the chair across on from her. "All right." He sat. He did not have Mia with him. Mia was at her mother's this week, part of the arrangement they'd managed to make work, mostly. "I have something that might be useful to you," he said, "or it might not be. I don't know the details well enough to say." She waited. He told her about Paul Nishida and Claire Nishida's property management company. He gave her what information he had. Small operation, maybe 12 residential properties, some commercial. They needed full-charge bookkeeping. They'd burned through people. He did not know the pay rate or the hours. He said so. "I'd have to check with Paul," he said. "Before I told you this was a real possibility, I wanted to ask you first whether it was something you'd consider." Margaret looked at him for a long moment. The look was not suspicious exactly, but it was watchful, measuring. "Why would you do that?" she said. "Because Paul mentioned it on Friday and I thought of you." "You thought of me," she repeated. "You're a CPA with 26 years of bookkeeping experience who's been submitting applications for 6 weeks, Daniel said. "Paul's wife needs a bookkeeper." The two things seemed related. She looked down at her coffee. "We had one conversation. I know. You don't know me, no," he said. "I don't." Another pause. The espresso machine hissed. 2 teenagers at the counter argued cheerfully about something Daniel couldn't hear. "I don't want a favor," Margaret said. "It's not a favor," he said. "A favor is when I do something for your benefit at a cost to myself. You'd be helping Claire Nishida with a problem she actually has. I'd be introducing 2 people who don't know each other. That's not a favor. That's just a connection." She looked at him. Her expression had not changed, but something in it had shifted slightly, the way a picture shifts when you move to stand in front of it from a different angle. "Does Claire Nishida know you're doing this?" she asked. "Not yet. I'd tell Paul first. If he confirms they're still looking, I'd give him your name and ask if he wanted to reach out. Nothing would happen without you agreeing, and if I say no, then I drink my coffee and we have a nice Wednesday evening and it goes no further." She looked at her own coffee, still untouched. Then she picked it up and drank from it. "All right," she said. "You can ask him." He texted Paul that night. Paul responded in 11 minutes. Claire was absolutely still looking. Could he share the contact? Daniel texted back, "I'll ask. Give me a day." He had no way to text Margaret. He thought about this problem practically. He went back to the Tim Hortons the next Wednesday, on the chance she was there. She was. He told her Paul had confirmed. He asked if she wanted to give him her number to pass along to Claire. She wrote it on the back of a receipt she pulled from her bag. She handed it to him across the table. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me yet," he said. You haven't met Claire. Is she difficult? Paul says she's organized and direct and expects the same from the people she works with. Margaret nodded. I can work with that. He believed her. Claire Nishida called Margaret the following Monday. Margaret told Daniel this the next Wednesday because she was there when he arrived, sitting at his table, the one with the wobbly leg. She had a medium coffee in front of her, not a small, and she had already drunk half of it. The interview is Thursday, she said when he sat down. Good. She asked me a lot of questions about my process for reconciliations. How did you answer? Accurately. The corner of her mouth moved. She said she'd be in touch by end of week. He nodded. They talked about other things. He told her about the infrastructure project he was managing, a pedestrian bridge in East Vancouver, delayed 6 weeks by a subcontractor issue that was finally resolving. She asked a few questions about it that were more informed than he expected, and when he said so, she told him her late husband had been a civil engineer. She said this without sadness, or rather with the particular kind of sadness that has settled into something quieter than grief, a fact that is also a loss worn smooth with time. I'm sorry, Daniel said. He was a good man, she said, stubborn and good. Maya was back this week. She had swim practice and she came in at 7:30 with wet hair and the same appetite she always had. She sat down next to Margaret as if this were a standing arrangement, which it was apparently becoming. Did you get a job? Mia have an interview, Margaret said. That's basically a yes, Mia said. That is not how interviews work, Mia, Daniel said. It is for her, Mia said with complete confidence, and reached for the maple glazed he had not yet offered. Claire Nishida called on Friday afternoon and offered Margaret the position. Part-time to start, 3 days a week with the clear expectation it would become full-time by Q2 if things went as Claire anticipated they would go. Margaret accepted. She texted Daniel a single line. She offered. I said yes. He texted back. Good. He put his phone in his pocket and went back to the structural drawings on his desk. The thing happened the following week quietly, without drama, the way most real things happen. Margaret was already at the table when Daniel arrived. She had 2 coffees, his size black, the way he took it, sitting in front of her next to her own. She pushed one across the table when he sat down. He looked at it. He looked at her. You didn't have to do that, he said. I know I didn't have to, she said. I wanted to. There was a distinction she was making, and he understood it. He picked up the coffee. Thank you, he said. I start Monday, she said. Claire sent over the chart of accounts this morning. She's got them organized in a way that makes sense once you see the logic. It's just not a standard format. Is that a problem? No. I actually prefer it when there's an internal logic. It's the ones built by committee that are difficult. She paused. I thought you should know the introduction worked out. In case you were wondering, I was a little, he said. You didn't ask. I was going to wait until you told me. She looked at him. That's a strange kind of patience. I didn't want to put you in the position of having to give me an update on something that might not have come through, he said. That didn't seem fair. She was quiet for a moment. Outside, the street was the particular gray that Vancouver goes in early November, the light flattening itself against the cloud cover until everything looks like the same low-resolution photograph. The window had a crack of warmth running along the bottom from a heater that Daniel had come to think of as reliable. My son thinks I should be more careful, Margaret said, about accepting help from people I don't know. Your son isn't wrong, Daniel said. She gave him a look. That's a generous thing for you to say. It's an honest thing. People have reasons for offering help. Not always good ones. What's your reason? He thought about how to answer this, and he answered it the way he tried to answer most things, directly, without more or less than was true. Mia asked a question, he said. And I've been trying to show her that when you can do something that helps someone without costing anything real, you should do it, and that it's the other person's right to decide if they want that help or not. He paused. That's the whole thing, really. Margaret looked at him for a moment, then she looked out the window. Kevin, my son, he wanted to give me money when I first moved here, she said. I wouldn't take it. Why not? Because I didn't earn it. Because I'd spent 30 years earning my own money and I wasn't ready to stop. She turned her coffee cup once, slowly, between her palms. He was upset. He thought I was being stubborn. Were you? She considered this with the seriousness he had come to recognize as part of how she thought, the genuine consideration before an honest answer. Partly, she said. But I also knew that if I took it, something in the way I saw myself would change, and I wasn't ready for that. I needed to know I could still find my own way. He nodded. The difference with this, she said, and she gestured briefly, ambiguously, at the table, at the coffee, at the general arrangement of things, is that what you offered wasn't money. It was an introduction, something I still had to earn on the other side of it. She looked at him. That's a different kind of help. I know, he said. Most people don't know that, she said. Most people think help is help. Some help takes something from the person receiving it, he said, even when it's well meant. She nodded once. Yes, they drank their coffees. Mia arrived at 7:25 with wet hair and sat down next to Margaret and announced that Sophie Brennan had finally apologized for something she had done 3 weeks ago at practice, and that it had been satisfying, but also a little anticlimactic because she'd expected to feel better than she did. That's usually how apologies feel when you've been waiting a long time, Margaret said. Mia thought about this. Is that always true? In my experience, Margaret said, the waiting always costs more than the apology gives back. Mia turned this over carefully. So you shouldn't wait. I think you just can't expect it to balance, Margaret said. The apology is still worth having, it just won't make up for the time. Mia nodded slowly, the way she nodded when she was filing something away. Daniel said nothing. He watched his daughter and this woman he had known for a little over a month talk about apologies and time, and the gap between what we expect and what we get. And he thought about the way some things happen without you deciding them. How a 9-year-old's question in a coffee shop could be the thing that changed the direction of an evening, and maybe something larger. He did not say any of this out loud. It would have been too much. Some things don't need saying to be real. In March, Margaret brought in a piece of paper and put it on the table without comment. It was a confirmation of her full-time offer from Claire Nishida's company, starting April 1st. Daniel looked at it, he looked at her. Claire moved it up, Margaret said. One of her other staff is going on leave. Congratulations, he said. Thank you. She took the paper back and folded it and put it in her bag. Kevin says I seem different. Different how? Less. She paused, finding the word, braced. He understood this. There was a way people carried themselves when they were waiting for the next difficult thing. A particular set to the shoulders, a readiness that took energy even when nothing was happening. He had seen it in Margaret when they first met, in the way she sat at that table with a cold coffee and a coat too light for the weather, and a face that was doing the arithmetic and finding it lacking. She did not look that way now. He wants to take me to dinner to celebrate, she said. Kevin, you should go, Daniel said. I know, she said. I'm going to. She said this simply, without the particular weight that would have been in it 6 months earlier, when going to dinner with her son to let him celebrate her would have cost her something she wasn't sure she could afford. The word I'm going to contained, quietly, the distance she had traveled. He recognized that distance. He had watched it from 3 tables over, and then from across the same table, every Wednesday for months. Mia's going to be disappointed, Margaret said. She's expecting me to be here. I'll explain, he said. She'll understand. Will she? He thought about his daughter who was 9 years old and had her mother's stillness, and a habit of asking questions that were more serious than they appeared, and a confidence in people that she extended with care but extended nonetheless. She'll say it was basically inevitable, he said. Margaret smiled at this, fully, the kind of smile she didn't show often, which made it worth something when she did. Tell her thank you, she said, for asking. Daniel nodded. He drove home on streets that were still wet from the afternoon rain, the way they always seemed to be in March, the city perpetually in the process of drying out and getting wet again. He thought about what he would tell Mia, and he thought it would not take long, because the truth of it was straightforward. She had asked a question at the right moment, and it had been the right question, and everything that came after it had followed as naturally as weather. He pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a minute. The porch light was on. Some things don't ask you to understand them fully. They only ask you to notice when they've happened. He noticed. He got out of the car and went inside.